When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Grease God YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Asha Greyjoy in The Winds of Winter. I had you guys submit questions probably like 2 weeks ago. I just never got to it. House of the Dragon stuff took precedent because, you know, of course, during the House of the Dragon life cycle, that content will kind of take the forefront because all this stuff, we may be waiting for Winds for a long time. So all this stuff is kind of, you know, I'll get to it when I get to it. But we're talking about Asha in The Winds of Winter. But yeah, before we get into your guys' questions, if you did want to ask your own type of questions, you can always follow me on Instagram or Twitter or any of the other social media stuff I have in the description. I do post those questions on there outside of just the YouTube community posts as well, if you did want to participate in these type of videos. And also, thank you to my Patreons and members who support me on this channel. If you did want to become one, you do get videos early, and you do get an extra video each week. For now, they're House of the Dragon styled, but in the future, they will be other stuff as well. So, let's get into the questions. So, the first question I have is from Matthew H. How's she going to get out of Winterfell? So, I think this is going to be more of a situation where Stannis allows her to go. I think that eventually, Stannis as a character, his plot is focused on Winterfell and all these things, and I feel like Asha is going to be in a position where she wants to have a working relationship with the mainland and especially the north. So when you think about Asha, and I have a lot of questions about people who, you know, ask me about if she's going to rule the Iron Islands, I think that is probably what's going to happen. It's going to be much more beneficial for Stannis to try and ally with someone like Asha than it will be for like someone like Euron, because Asha is someone that sees through the issues of the Ironborn, where raiding and all these things doesn't get them anywhere, right? And she tried to, you know, tell that to the Ironborn at the Kingsmoot. When it comes to winter, how are they going to feed themselves? You can't steal food all the time and all this stuff, creating wars and stuff like that. You need to be able to trade with other nations and things like that, or provide your services of having ships, you know, and doing all that stuff. They really need to do more or less the Velaryon look at things, right? Where that when you look at Corlys, he was someone that was big on going around the world and trading things from this part of the world to the other part. They're a massive naval power. They need to really kind of figure out how to do that instead of just stealing things, for instance. If you want to think about it, I think the closest comparison to the Ironborn in real life is like the Japanese. When you look at like their actions in World War II, a lot of that was because they needed more resources, and so they had to end up stealing that from others. The U.S., you know, blockading them of oil because that's where they get most of their oil. It comes down to it where, you know, Japan, even in nowadays, they've become more integrated into the natural, you know, world where they're trading more and doing things that are not maybe as violent, maybe not as like warlike as it used to be back in like the 1940s, 30s, and all that stuff. So that's kind of the closest example I can kind of think of right away. But I think, you know, what we're going to see with Asha is, you know, she is going to be sent away, I think, by Stannis in terms of trying to gain another ally and get the Ironborn to come to his side. Now, with that being said, I had another question about Asha that we'll talk about later on, what she may do after Stannis' death. She may go with somebody else. So we'll see what happens there. The Stagnator asks, what will Asha's continued role in the Stannis camp be? Do you see her surviving? I definitely think she's going to survive. I don't see any real reason for her to die in the Winds of Winter unless she stays with Stannis' camp till the end and is killed by the others, for instance, because Stannis won't let go of her as a hostage. But I don't see any reason for her to die, and I think her role in Stannis' camp could be, as of right now, maybe just like an advisor, maybe, or somebody that Stannis looks to for information in terms of, like, you know, naval movements, maybe asking about Euron or things like that. I don't know if Asha's going to have a huge role by any means, but I think she could also, you know, talk some sense into Stannis about Theon, and maybe that's why Theon also is going to live. I think Theon is going to be put in front of a heart tree, and that he's going to have to, you know, tell what he actually did, and it's going to have a big impact because the northern people believe that you cannot lie in front of a heart tree or the weirwood trees and all that. So I think Asha will be in a position where, for now, with Stannis' camp, it's going to be just about maybe Stannis goes to her to ask information or things like that. Cam asked a question that's more about the end of the series, but You asked, do you see her ending up on the small council as master of ships by the end of the series? I could see it happening, but I don't think so. I think it makes more sense for it to end up being Davos. Based upon, okay, Davos, I think will be more having a better working relationship. Now, I think if you want to go in terms of, okay, the Ironborn staying in the kingdoms and having peace, Asha's a better move to put on, as master of ships. And she also has worked and battled on ships for a long time. So she's a smart choice. So I would say Davos would be my first pick, but my second pick probably would also be Asha. I think that's a good pick as well. As of right now, though, I don't see it happening, Cam. Taylor says, do you think she survives wins? I actually think Asha is a character that survives the whole story. I think she is by far the most natural choice for kind of changing the way the Ironborn go about as a culture and shifting their ways. If we go by the end of the story and nothing really seems to change, like say it's somebody else that just takes up the place of the regular Ironborn, it doesn't really make sense. And so if it's not Asha, who is it? Like, is it Theon? Okay, well then he can't really have kids now, or it's believed he can't have kids, so it doesn't really change anything. So I think Asha is the natural person that's going to rule the Iron Islands, so I think she is safe for not only this book, but Dream of Spring as well. What are the chances one of her or Theon die to consolidate that storyline / viewpoint? I think if anyone's going to die between the two, it's going to be Theon, and maybe he's killed for his crimes and a sacrifice that helps Stannis maybe win the Battle of Ice and things like that. I just don't see that happening. I think Theon has way more left in the story to kind of go through before his character is done. I think the actual show did a decent job with Theon, where they resolved his conflict with like a character like Jon and like Sansa and some of these other characters, Bran notably. He just hasn't, to me, fulfilled his full arc yet. And so I think, to me, I don't see him dying either, and I definitely don't see Asha dying. And that also came from Dell, so thank you for your question. Cheeto asks, will she be the head of House Greyjoy, or would she be the Sea King and Theon is her Land King and have a dual rulership? It's definitely going to be her as the head of House Greyjoy on the Iron Islands. I don't see a situation where, maybe she gets land. If she does in the mainland, I think it could be a situation where she does appoint someone like Theon to rule over that like small land that she may get from like helping Daenerys or helping whoever. But as of right now, I think Asha is poised to be in that role. Matthew asks another question: will she rule the Iron Islands or perish before the story is over? Again, I've talked about this a lot. I think she's going to rule the Iron Islands, but will she have a hand in Euron's demise? Now, see, that's an interesting question. I think she could, because I do think it makes sense for Asha, upon, Stannis' defeat, probably to the others, that she turns to somebody else. And the natural person that she should go for is Daenerys. She's going to have dragons. She's going to have the most powerful army. She's going to be in need of more ships as well. Also, if you think about it, right, a lot of the Ironborn fleet that's not with Euron will probably be with Daenerys. So it actually makes a lot of sense, because Asha would be someone that they would respect as well, depending on if Victarion is alive or dead. I would be very curious if Victarion is still alive by the time that we see Daenerys in Westeros. Asha and Victarion could maybe have an alliance where Victarion breaks that with like Euron, for instance, and maybe we could see them team up for a little while, but I do think Victarion will probably be dead by the time we get to Westeros. But I do think she's going to go with Daenerys, and so I think, yeah, there is a chance she could have a hand in Euron's demise. Decode asks, most pressing, Asha and Theon are both in the same spot physically and somewhat metaphorically. Asha is not quite as low in Stannis' regard and has probably not arrived at Theon's mindset after his torture. Will they both survive the next chapters concerning the North? Yeah, I think they're going to survive. I think it is interesting, right? Because Asha is kind of in a spot where she's kind of in, maybe not an identity crisis, but she doesn't know where to go in terms of her life, right? Her chapter as she's getting captured by Stannis, she doesn't know where to go. She doesn't know if she should go into exile, to go back to the Iron Islands, to try and bend the knee to maybe Euron, or maybe she should just die in battle. She's very much in a identity crisis. And Theon is kind of on his way back to finding himself as Theon, but also he's going to be in the same issue, like, where do I go from here, right? And so I think that is an interesting point that you compare the two characters, but I do think they will both survive. Next plot point in mind would be likely her and Euron. Does she pledge allegiance somewhere in this war? Can she rally a considerable force? Maybe even she will help Davos to retrieve Rickon from the Cannibal Isles if she survives Stannis. No, that's not going to happen. I don't think the last one's going to happen, because by the time Stannis releases Asha to maybe go do her own thing or whatnot, I think Davos is already going to be done with that plot. I think logically, Asha could find a lot of rallying support going back to Daenerys, based upon the fact that she's gonna have Ironborn fleet, she's gonna have Ironborn men with her, most likely from Victarion. There's a theory that the captain of the Miramen's daughter had Theon's child. If this plays into Asha's story, how could it? The Miramen is in Old Town, and Asha is near Winterfell. I mean, I don't think that's going to really play that much of a role in terms of right now. Yeah, I don't know, because that's not really going to play into effect until maybe Dream of Spring. Maybe if that is true, right? As House Greyjoy, if Euron dies and Victarion dies, there's not any heirs after, like, Aeron, who's probably going to die as well. Theon doesn't seem like he can have children. Asha being, maybe a woman. Maybe that child could then be placed as maybe the heir to the Greyjoys, because they don't have, like, kids right now. So, yeah, maybe that could be something that plays into it more towards, like, the end of Dream of Spring. You also ask, will Asha fight in the Battle of Winterfell against the others? What will she do after the Battle of Ice? If she survives, which I think she will. I don't really see her returning to the Iron Islands and win, since the guy Euron left in charge is the same guy Euron married her to. I don't think she's going to fight in the Battle of Winterfell against the others. I think she'll be long gone by then, because I think anybody staying to fight in the Battle of Winterfell is probably going to die. I do think in the Battle of Ice, I don't know what she's going to really be in the place to do, right? She's still a prisoner, right? So maybe she's just kept out of the way and on looking as the battle, happens. Maybe she's freed because they need all the people they can to fight this battle. Maybe that's, could happen. But either way, I still think she's going to be under the charge of Stannis. Jess asks, if she rules the islands, will she finally break Ironborn tradition and have her people sow the land? Maybe learn a lesson throughout the long night that you can't feed starving people with food you can't steal from other starving people. Yeah, Jess, I think that's going to be crucial. I think, for the Ironborn, it would be really important if they got some good land to farm and to grow their own food, whether that's from Daenerys or whoever is ruling, Bran, Jon, Youngriff, whatever. That would be really crucial. I also think trading would be very important to them as being a very big naval power. I think all that could be important, right? In terms of maybe selling their ships to, instead of, trying to raid all these places as, convoys, protection. We talk about how the Stepstones is so dangerous. Hiring some, ships from the Greyjoys to transport things would be a great way of them also earning, money and resources. So I think we're headed that way, where I think by the end of the story, the Greyjoys have to change their ways, because as of right now, it's not sustainable. Bill Joe asks, does she survive the Battle of Ice? Which she will. But you think one of either her or Theon will die? I don't think that's going to occur. I think it's more likely if the Theon dies than her, but we'll see. Where is she by the end? Again, I think she will be the ruler of the Iron Islands. And does she meet Euron again? I think she will meet Euron again. And whether that's in battle, whether that's him being taken as a prisoner, maybe executed, whatnot, I do think there is some stuff that is just, not been concluded between the two characters. And so, yeah, I do think that we will see a bit more of Asha and Euron. So that is all the questions that I got that I could see. Again, it was a while in between I put out the questionnaire for this video. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.